Uh, Thank you everyone for coming. Welcome. We have the mayor in the house, Mayor de Blasio. We have some amazing organizations in the room that are doing a phenomenal work to not only provide services for young people who are experiencing homelessness, especially those of us who identify as LGBTQ, but we also have organizations in the room that are working to drive policies and to just end homelessness among all populations, period, especially those who are LGBTQ identified. Today, as you all are aware, is 40 to None Day. If you know about that, please raise your hand. Awesome. So while we're here, if you want to tweet, if you want to use social media, definitely use the hashtag 40 to None Day. It's a great day. This is the second year. And also we have two of the most amazing people from True Colors Fund in the house right now, Twiggy and Krista. Raise your hands. Great people doing amazing work nationally for LGBTQ people who are experiencing homelessness. But the reason we are here today is to bring light to the issue of LGBT youth homelessness in our city. And also, as a person who has experienced homelessness in living in New York City, there's avenues of housing that I've been afforded that I couldn't have found anywhere else. And they have allowed me to not only grow, but also to prosper in a number of ways. Like for instance, especially as a person living with HIV. For low-income New Yorkers with HIV, we have great infrastructure in this city to deal with housing instability. For instance, a 30% rent cap, which we had the mayor's support on. Which is a major game changer. Absolutely, and also doing your part, Mayor, for the expansion of hostel services to include people who are asymptomatic. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts for that. That stuff means the world to us. And also the work that the mayor has contributed to or supported in this city to address, the safety concerns and housing instability for LGBTQ youth that we'll hear all about today with the speaking. So with that being said, I'm going to introduce our first speaker, who is the CEO of the Hedrick Martin Institute, an organization that is like the largest LGBT service provider in the country for, especially as it relates to mental health services. They do a lot of amazing work. I've been there many times. It's a great space, great atmosphere. So I'm going to introduce the CEO, Thomas Crever.
Hello, it's a pleasure to be here, particularly for our mayor, our elected commissioner. It's wonderful to see you. And our young people, right? So amazing and yes, incredible and resilient, and it's an honor and a privilege to stand before you. And at Hedrick Martin Institute, we've never forgotten that is where the work really is. It is connecting with human lives, with LGBT young people who are incredibly resilient, but lack the access that so many of us as adults or other young people have. And unfortunately in this city, with the mayor that we have now, is not taken for granted. And so we're incredibly grateful for that. In a few minutes, I'll introduce another pioneer, Carl, but let me first talk a little bit about HMI and the work we do and why it's such an esteem to work with the Forney Center. It is so imperative before anything else happens, whether it's technology or in education and access to college, all these critical things, without knowing where you lay your head at night, without knowing that you have a safe and supportive environment where you can be your authentic selves, nothing else matters. And to have a mayor and city leadership and a speaker and city council that get that understand that without these life-saving, critical core necessities, that we can throw all the money and the technology in the world at this problem, it just will not matter. And so to have ears and eyes and hearts that get that, and get that on a fundamental level, is indeed a blessing and frankly a paradigm change in this city. And so we're incredibly grateful for your ownership, not just acknowledgement, ownership of the challenges that our young people face. Absolutely. At HMI, we are privileged to both house what is called the Harvey Milk High School, but also an extensive outreach team. And so we know that as our young people go out and as our staff try and reach them in all 5 boroughs of this city to bring them back to the Agency for Life-Sustaining Services, whether it's a hot meal or a shower or access to a high school diploma in college and beyond. Having a roof over their heads is always key and critical. And to partner with Ali Forney and 40 to None, who is taking this work and elevating it and lifting it so that it is a national issue and challenge because it's an epidemic. And to have Vocal and other organizations get that and lead the way as guardians for our young people who so historically, for so long, have lacked access to those conversations, to the table, if you will, where people and decision makers who often do not look like ourselves are deciding life and death decisions. And our mayor and the work of these great organizations, they get that, and we're incredibly fortunate for that. In fact, this Saturday, our LGBT young people have an enormous opportunity, and I want to get this out to you, and thanks to Cy Vance and our leadership of the city. So Operation Clean Slate will actually be working with LGBT young people across the city where low-level offenses, we can have them expunged because we know, yes, so be there Saturday, right? Because we know that these low-level offenses will bar you from employment for the rest of your lives, from working at places like HMI or AFC or any other place that works with the city, because you're not allowed to work before you're fingerprinted. And we know what happens with things like loitering or peeing on the street, things that should not bar you from access to opportunities for the rest of your life. So I hope you will come down and spread the word. We want to show the rest of the city we count, we matter, and this is a big opportunity for us. Now it's a privilege to introduce another pioneer, someone who is a dear, dear herald and guardian of our community and the creator of Ali Forney Center. It is such a privilege and honor to introduce Carl Siciliano.
I want to welcome everybody to the Ali Forney Center, to our drop-in center, the nation's first 24/7 drop-in center for homeless LGBT youth, something that we wouldn't have been able to accomplish without the incredible support of the de Blasio administration. I also want to recognize the wonderful organizations that are in the room, and I apologize in advance if I leave anybody out, but Kate Barnhart from New Alternatives, who has been fighting this fight for years, is with us. Andy Velez representing ACT UP is with us. Thomas Crever, of course, from HMI. Jawanza and Jason from Vocal New York. We've got Harlem United in the house. Of course, we've got True Colors. We've got Covenant House. Have I left anybody out? Callan Lord, a wonderful organization. And Housing Works. And the Diaspora Community Services. So,
And the National Action Network.
and the, oh wow, the National Action Network. So we've got just a lot of really great organizations represented in the room. I've been working with homeless LGBT youth in New York City for 22 years. I must have started when I was about 5. I want to talk about what it used to be like, because we can't appreciate what we have now if we don't understand what it used to be. And, you know, you can talk about numbers. You can talk about the fact that for years there were 250 beds for a homeless youth population that numbered in the thousands. But numbers don't really mean much. I'm going to talk about some personal experiences that I've had. Understanding what it means for a young person to be forced to sleep in the streets. I remember when I first started working at a drop-in center called Safe Space in the mid-90s. I got called up to the case management office, and one of our young men they thought maybe he was having a seizure. He was trembling out of control, breathing really hard, couldn't talk, couldn't answer our questions. We called 911. And when the paramedics got there, they had him breathe into a paper bag, and it turned out that he was having a panic attack. And the reason he was having a panic attack was because he had been couch surfing, going from friend's couch to friend's couch to friend's couch. And he had run out of couches, and that night was going to be his first night on the streets. And this was a 19-year-old young man who was just so scared to death at having to sleep in the streets that he had lost control of himself and was just obliterated with panic. That was about 1995. Another instance that just really has stuck with me, around Christmas time of 2011, I was at the drop-in center we used to be at on 22nd Street before the Hurricane Sandy destroyed it. And I was talking to a young transgender client of ours, a young woman who, her face was all battered and bloodied, and she had a black eye. And she was telling me how the night before she had had to do survival sex. And the person that took her home, where she was really just looking for a place to sleep for the night, beat her up badly. She talked about what it's like sleeping on the streets. She talked about a night where she was sleeping on Christopher Street and just felt so lost and alone and cried all night long and prayed to die. So that was another instance that really impacted me. But the instance that I think about more than anything else is the day I went to work on December 2nd, 1997, and our clinical coordinator came into my office and told me that we had just gotten a call from Harlem Hospital that Ali Forney had been murdered on the streets on 135th Street and 5th Avenue. And they wanted us to come and identify his body because they found a safe space ID card in his pocket. These are things that have just, it's like scar tissue on my heart. The suffering for years and years that I've seen young people go through because they haven't had access to something as simple as a bed at night. You know, around the time that Ali was killed, it came out that New York City was not even spending the state funds that were allotted to it, that there's city and state matching dollars. And each year, because the Giuliani administration was not even willing to spend their homeless youth money, the monies were getting returned back upstate to like the homeless youth of Utica or something like that. In the press attention that followed Ali's murder, the council held a hearing and it came to light that this was happening. And so at that point, the city went from providing about 130 beds to about 150 beds. Then for years, we were just stuck at that place. And then there was a wonderful city council member named Lou Fiddler who was the chair of the youth committee. And between 2006 and 2008, the council was able to, through their discretionary funds, add 80 beds and brought it up to 250 beds. Also at that time, the council commissioned a census, the first ever census of homeless youth in New York City, and found that there were over 3,800 young people between the ages of 13 and 24 who were unaccompanied youth on the streets. After 2008, every year Mayor Bloomberg attempted to cut the homeless youth funding in the city by either 50 or 60%. You know, myself and other advocates and other folks in this room, you know, got together in 2011 and we started something called the Campaign for Youth Shelter to try to demand that the city shift from trying to cut the beds every year to working towards a solution of adding 100 beds every year until such time as there would be no longer waiting lists at the youth shelters. And something remarkable happened in 2013. In March of 2013, the mayoral election was in full swing, and there was a LGBT mayoral forum at Baruch College. And when Bill de Blasio got up to address the crowd, the LGBT community, he said that LGBT youth homelessness was a disgrace and that it was the face of economic inequality in New York City for the LGBT community. And at that point, he committed that he would adopt our pledge to add 100 beds a year until such time as there were no longer waiting lists at the youth shelters. And in the first 2 years of his administration, remarkably, he kept his promise. I'm not saying remarkable to you, but just because it's not always the world we live in. Not only that, but just recently he pledged that over the next 3 years he's going to add 300 additional beds. So we will have gone from a place where, in the 90s there were 130 beds to, 2019 we're going to have 750 beds. And, when you hear 3,800 and 750, that may sound like grossly inadequate. About 10 young people a year stay in a youth shelter bed. So adding 100 beds over the course of a year shelters about 1,000 young people. Easily 2,000 young people have been sheltered in the last 2 years who wouldn't have been if Mayor de Blasio hadn't done what he's done. Not only that, there's been like a remarkable cultural sensitivity to the needs of our young people. The first time that the Campaign for Youth Shelter went to meet with the deputy mayor at the time, we were prepared to really push her on the special needs of transgender youth who face the most violence and the most hardship in the shelter system. And she brought it up before we did. She was like, the city needs to do more for transgender youth. And in fact, the Forney Center has been given a contract to develop a pilot project to provide specialized housing for transgender young people. And that's just a remarkable accomplishment. We still are in a city where there are not enough beds for young people. One of our dreams had been to get this drop-in center open 24 hours a day. And in the first year of the de Blasio administration, DYCD was able to give us funding to get this drop-in center open 24 hours a day. And every night there are many, many young people who find refuge in this space who, again, would be in the streets otherwise. So again, that's a tremendous accomplishment. One thing I want to acknowledge, though, is that you don't go from decades of utter neglect to perfection all at once. I mean, we're in a process. And we still need to do more for the 21 to 24-year-olds who are... We work with people up to 24 at this drop-in center, and we've gotten to a place where the 16 to 20-year-olds can get housing quite quickly, but our 21 to 24-year-olds wait for a long, long time. But to fix a problem, you have to acknowledge it. And I was so grateful that in the 90-day review, they called attention to the fact that they do need to prioritize moving forward, working on developing housing especially for LGBT youth in the 21 to 24-year-old age range. And so we're so excited to have the opportunity now to work with the mayor's administration to get to a place where we really have transformed our city and made it a place where LGBT young people are not forced to sleep on the streets. When I think over these years, I think about the horrible things that young people have told me. I think about listening to young people crying. I think about the rallies we've done in Union Square and in Washington Square Park. I think of inundating the previous administrations with phone calls. I think of all the fighting we had to do. And I think about the times where I just felt like giving up, where I just felt so frustrated that it felt like the powers that be in the city just didn't care about homeless LGBT youth. And now to be at a place where we've got a partner in the mayor and in his administration that is recognizing and understanding and caring about our young people and valuing them, I can't tell you how much it means to me. I can't tell you what a sea change it is and how remarkable it is. So we're going to give the mayor a proclamation shortly, but I just want to say that from the very, very, very bottom of my heart, I'm so grateful. And on behalf of all the young people that I work with, I just want you to know how deeply and profoundly grateful we are for your caring and for your responsiveness. I could say that what you've done is visionary. I could say that what you've done is unprecedented. But basically, I just think that you're a decent guy. And so it's not decent to leave children in the street without beds. So from the bottom of my heart, I thank you for your decency. And now I fear I may have run on way too long, so I'm going to very quickly ask one of our amazing youth advocates, Sky Adrian, who passionately fights to improve the conditions of homeless LGBT youth in New York, and who is just a really charming and delightful young man who lives in our transitional housing, to come up and talk personally about his experience.
Afternoon, everyone. All right, so my name is Sky Adrian, and I'm a gay Jamaican youth. I fled Jamaica because I was being persecuted for my sexual orientation, and I arrived here with the intention of staying with my parents. However, when my orientation was exposed to them, they kicked me out. Before hearing about the Forney Center via immigration equality, I was couch surfing and I was used for sex in exchange for food, money, and shelter, like many other youth that are benefiting from these services now. I highly commend the mayor, however, for all the historic contributions he has made to these issues. Before I came to AFC, Mayor de Blasio added 200 beds for the runaway homeless youth, and I live in one of those beds. Thank you for that. As a part of those additional beds, AFC was able to open its first trans-Pacific housing program. Though not for me, this program is significant in providing support for my peers because I do believe that transgender individuals do face a lot more discrimination than anybody else in the spectrum of LGBTQ. And with the mayor's support, AFC is the only city-funded LGBT drop-in center in NY State and the country to provide a 24-hour service and extensive resources for LGBT, homeless youth, and LGBT youth at risk. So I think AFC can give a clap to themselves for that. AFC has positively impacted my life by providing housing, intensive case management, life coaches, mental and physical health care with their on-site doctor's office and mental health counselors. The Youth Advocacy Department, which is headed by Nicole, and funny enough, she is the person, well, they are the person that did my intake when I first came here. So they did their very best in getting me housing within just the same weekend that I came. They gave me the skills associated with public speaking, advocacy, office administration, event planning, and a lot more. AFC has also helped me form alliances with groups like Vocal New York with Jason and Joanzo, ACT UP, Housing Works, and the Center. This has ultimately made me a youth activist for the LGBT youth homelessness, HIV prevention, and immigration in NYC. Because of the mayor's investment, when I arrived at AFC, I was placed in confidential emergency housing the following weekend. The mayor's investment is indeed helping to fully meet the needs of runaway homeless youth under the age of 21, and I hope you continue to do so. However, there are fellow clients who waited for months because of the limited beds available to them because they were between the ages of 21 to 24. That's past the eligibility rate because of the New York State limits runaway homeless youth services to underage 21 youth. By my 21st birthday this November, I will have to be transferred to another house in the hopes that there is a bed available for that. If not, that will not be the case. However, with the help I have received from the Forney Center, I am definitely optimistic about my future. Without programs like the Forney Center, I am not sure what I would have done. I am hopeful that with continued efforts on behalf of Mayor de Blasio and his administration, that LGBT youth homelessness will go from 40% to none. As of today, I hope. With that said, I would like to thank Mayor de Blasio for your commitment to my life and the lives of many other AFC clients, and the future and well-being of all my peers. And with that said, I would like to have him introduced and brought up here.
So we're going to take a picture with the three of us, and then we're going to bring up our...
I'm familiar with the proclamation ceremony.
Okay, Sky, you and I will have to stand on our tiptoes. And now I'd like to ask the co-sponsoring organizations to come up and be photographed with us all giving the proclamation to the mayor.
Come on, the more the merrier.
And the Commissioner Bill Chung, too, of course.
Come on up. We'll have to move to the left.
Thank you. Thank you. And squeeze.
Paparazzi are everywhere.
Thank you so much, Mayor de Blasio, for the extraordinary work that you've done for our young people.
You know it. Thank you. Give me a hug, you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it very much. Well, I have to tell you, this is very, very moving for me. And I want to talk to you about what I've felt about why we have to do everything we're doing and why we have to do more. But I first want to thank everyone here. You know, there is no such thing as fighting for justice in vain. This is what I've learned over years of activism and work in public life, that every good struggle, every effort to educate people and change society's assumptions and get people the help they need, it doesn't always succeed at first, as Carl's story, you know, makes powerful about all the years of fighting. But it does succeed in the end, is what I believe. And the fact that we're in this drop-in center, the fact that hundreds more young people have a bed each night, it is because everyone here led the way. Everyone here raised the demand. Everyone here believed something had to be different. So I just want to say thank you, because that is how the world turns. Leaders play a role, but change does not come from the top down. Change historically, consistently comes from the people up, from the grassroots up. So I'm very honored to stand here before you. I'm very honored to receive the proclamation, but if you really want to honor me, you have to give yourselves a rousing round of applause. And I love the vision and the message of 40 to None Day, because it's the right goal. It's the right thing to say. We don't accept anything less than victory. We don't accept anything less than every person having a home, and particularly every young person having a home. I have to talk for a moment about those who spoke before me. Sky, your story is incredibly powerful. And I have to say, I've said this at some other gatherings, but I'm going to put it through the prism of what you said, Sky. So some of you may have seen my kids talking in different ways or on television or read about them. I'm blessed to have two absolutely extraordinary children in Kiara and Dante. And they have both shown me every day, you know, what amazing things the generation coming up can do and will do. And it's impossible for me to look at my two children and think of anything but my total love for them, and not just love, but my respect for them, and the way in many cases they educate me and lead me to a better place. So, you know, Sky, I want to just offer as a parent that, you know, I can see in you those same wonderful qualities I see in my children. And I feel some measure of your pain that your own parents didn't see what is so evident to me, and I think to so many other people in this room. And we know people are blinded by their own upbringings, by, you know, what they have been taught and what they've been told. I don't think necessarily people mean to do painful things to other people, but I think there's a weight of history, to say the least. But I still don't understand it. Even though I can acknowledge that, I still don't understand how any parent doesn't see all the good in their child, even if their child takes a different path. I don't personally understand that. I think it's about unconditional love. And I just want to express my appreciation to you. And I want to thank Carl for your incredibly heartfelt story of the years and years of struggle to get everyone to a better place. It is moving that I appreciated when you said sometimes you felt the weight of it and sometimes you felt like giving up. That's always the measure of someone who's telling you the truth, when they acknowledge the pain and the burden. But I could also hear underneath that you may have been tempted to give up, but you actually didn't know how to give up, and I like that about you. And I'm glad you stuck with it because we owe you so much of the credit for all this happened. Let's thank Carl for all he has done. And I want to thank, there's so many people in my administration who care so deeply. They really do. I love the story you told. I guess you met with Lilium and you told that story, and so many other people in our administration. This is a labor of love to help and to serve and to find a way to do things differently. There are so many of them. You mentioned Steve Banks, who's done such great work with the Human Resources Administration. Now will be overseeing homeless services as well. I want to give a lot of appreciation to Commissioner Bill Chong, who really believed in what we needed to do with homeless and runaway youth, and really believed we should and we could and we must and we had to increase the number of beds, and he's making it happen. Let's thank Bill Chong for that. And Carl told you the numbers, but another way of saying it is essentially from the day we came in the door to where we're going to be in just a couple of years, it will be a tripling of the number of beds. And there's more to come, and we have to reach every single child. I want to thank Joanza for leadership and everyone at Vocal and all. And I want to thank Thomas Craver and Hedrick Martin because I appreciate everything Hedrick Martin does, but I want to say Thomas used a word that I really connected for me, which was ownership. And I want to just talk about that for a moment. I appreciate all you've done. Let's give Thomas a round of applause and Hedrick Martin. But I want to talk about the notion of ownership because think about us as a very large community, a very large village. We in this city, 8.5 million people in modern society, we think of a lot of disconnected people in different communities and one thing or another. But we really should think of ourselves as just an oversized village. Because when you think from that perspective, everyone is connected. Everyone does have a reason to believe that each other's fate matters and that we have an obligation to each other and a responsibility. And it's not a negative, it's a good thing. It means that in being there for each other, we make the whole village stronger. And again, it comes back to me of the notion of what parents, in my view, and I feel very clear about this, parents should cherish their children, parents should support their children, parents should realize that there is no bad choice, that people express their identity, express their beliefs, express who they are, and that's to be embraced and loved. But when parents go astray, and I'll put it in those terms, because ironically the parents may be thinking the children went astray, but in my opinion the parents went astray because they forgot their most fundamental mission. When parents go astray, the village, the community, the city should be there to catch any child cast aside. We should not allow that child to fall. There are children too. And if you really understand there are children too, it's inconceivable to leave them on the streets. It's inconceivable to put them in harm's way, to end up in a situation where their bodies could be used against their will, where they have no other option for survival, or where they end up being forced into criminal activities, or so many things that we all know are not what we should allow. And so it's everyone's responsibility. And so, Carl, I appreciate when you took us back for a moment to that forum back in 2013. And it was a very emotional forum because we were talking about these very issues and how mistaken we were if we couldn't get this right. How can we be proud of ourselves as a city, all the wonderful things about us, but if we can't get this part right, if we can't catch our children who have been cast aside and uplift them and give them what they need, well, then it's hard to really brag about the other things. So I want to restate our commitment. We believe in ownership, and we believe in it across the board. That's why I believed in the 30% rent cap, because we're not going to know that someone's in need and leave them without the help they deserve and make them pay something they cannot pay. It's as simple as that. So it's ownership to say your challenge is now my challenge too. It's ownership to say if someone has HIV and happens to be asymptomatic, that doesn't make it any less a challenge. So we wanted to recognize and serve everyone, because it's all of us together. And when it comes to the beds, and I really appreciate the focus today on young people in the 21 to 24-year-old range, because you were kind to talk about what we've done and kind to provide this moment of appreciation, but you've also now gotten my full attention that there's more work to do, and we have to do more to reach the 21 to 24-year-olds, so now I have a new mission to go farther on that front. And we will keep going. We will keep going till we get to the point that every young person is safe and every young person has a bed. That is the trajectory we are on. And I need your help to do it, because we still need to bring this issue to the attention of the whole state, of the whole nation. We are doing some of the right things here because you fought for those right things, but this is far from over, because we have to make this something that, first of all, in New York City, we have the support that we deserve from the state and federal government, but even more importantly, in terms of thinking now as our community that is our nation, what we are doing here, the bar we're setting, the standard we're setting, what we believe in here, I hope we can show many other places in the country that this is what we should do for our children. So let's hold that standard high. And I need your help in Albany right away. There is a simple piece of legislation sponsored by Assemblymember Andrew Hevesy, who's been an amazing champion for young people and for folks who are homeless. And it says something very simple. It says that young people should be allowed to stay in a shelter for up to 90 days, because state law does not allow that right now. We need this legislation passed by June, and we need your help to do it so we can serve kids who deserve that help. Will you help me do it? So thank you. I will conclude by saying 40 to none means a lot to me and my administration. I want to thank everyone here for making it a standard we all should live by, and we will be with you every step of the way. Thank you.
Before the mayor's out of the room, there's a few things I forgot to say that are very important. One, I want everybody to give a hand to the staff of the Forney Center, many of whom are in here, whose dedication and drive and caring and lovingness just moves me all the time. And I also want to recognize the young people of the Forney Center and of the other organizations that are with us today. Your heroism is amazing. I also want to recognize John Kimball from Deutsche Bank, who has made a major investment in helping us to expand the number of beds that we have. So thank you, John. And I also want to bring up to the stage somebody who's really been a heroine of homeless LGBT youth for many, many years, Kate Barnhart, who runs the wonderful New Alternatives drop-in program.
Thanks, Carl. So I'm a lot shorter than many of the guys we've seen today,
And I will say it has been all guys we've seen today. What's up with that? Anyway, so I think the mayor had an important message, but I think that we as a community have a lot of work to do. Today has been a celebration of how far we've come, but there are still young people on the street. There are still trans folks, especially trans women of color, suffering violence and discrimination, not just in the shelter system, in particular the DHS facilities. There are women, trans folks and LGBT folks suffering in the juvenile justice and the adult correctional system. There are folks suffering in HASA SROs. We need to make sure that we continue to fight as a community and that we don't become complacent because we've already come so far. And so I think it's very important, our cities and our country are facing some major challenges politically. And I think it's important that we don't allow the right wing, the Republicans, the moderates / Republicans to come to power. We need to make sure that our services and our benefits and everything we fought for is protected and then expanded. As a member of ACT UP for many years, I fought for the creation of HASA and for the creation of AIDS services, as did several other ACT UP members in the room. And what I can say is those services are disintegrating. I've been working with a client who has full-blown AIDS and cancer, and the services he needed are just not there. There's no sense of urgency anymore. And I think that we really have to make sure that we don't allow that to happen again, that we don't allow the things we fought for to go back or to disintegrate. We have to stand our ground. And I think the issue of the 21 to 24-year-olds is crucial. At New Alternatives, we serve up to 24, and then we have an aftercare program for folks 24 to 30 who were in the program when they were younger. And we get absolutely no government funding. We get a minute amount of city council funding. And so I think it's important that the city and the state step up to take care of our LGBT folks, not just, up to 21, but up to 24 and beyond. Permanent housing and supportive housing for LGBT folks is crucial. We really need an LGBT-specific adult shelter because our folks are not safe in those facilities. So there's a lot of work to be done, and we need the city, the state, the feds, the LGBT community, and the corporate sector to all come together and get our people what they need and what they deserve to really, realize that these things are fundamental human rights, not privileges. Thanks.
So thank you, Kate. Thanks to all the speakers. Thanks to all of our co-organizers. Thanks to the mayor. And now we actually have to serve dinner to our young people, so I gotta kick y'all out. So the door's over there. But thank you so very, very much for being with us. It means the world to us to have all of you join us today. So thank you, thank you, thank you.